Don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. And on this edition, we're going to be talking about the New Orleans Saints. We're going to be giving our final thoughts about the Week 10 matchup and addressing the obvious. And the obvious is that the Saints need to remove themselves from this Dennis Allen experiment. And yes, I am having a show like this. And yes, it is live. And I want to thank everybody for being here. Shouts out to everybody in the chat. Shouts out to everybody right now that's watching this, no matter where you are, wherever you may be. I know quite a few people are off due to Veterans Day on today. I didn't say this and I didn't get an opportunity to mention this, but happy Veterans Day. To all the veterans out there. You know, shouts out to my brother, Sam Jones, did 3 tours of Iraq and Afghanistan. And just want to give him a shout out, man. My brother was in the Army during the time like where 9/11 was at its height, and so many other veterans out there that did some amazing things, helping defend freedom. So just want to give him a shout out. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen is in his second year with the New Orleans Saints as the head coach. And, last year when Dennis Allen was hired, you had a lot of Saints fans that were willing to give him a chance. They were willing to give him a chance because we accepted the fact that he coached a team in the Oakland Raiders historically as a franchise wasn't very good. They weren't a very good franchise. So a lot of people thought maybe it was more organization than Dennis Allen. So they were willing to embrace him. I can remember when Dennis Allen was hired, the press conference. I remember him going to the Pelicans game with his family and got a standing ovation. I mean, people were excited and ready to embrace him and give him an opportunity to change the narrative about himself as a head coach. Last season, the New Orleans Saints had some injury issues. They had some ups and downs because of guys like Jarvis Landry, guys like Michael Thomas, Marshawn Lattimore wasn't in the lineup. It just seemed like the team was decimated with injuries. Jameis Winston, being injured, Andy Dalton coming in. I mean, people looked at this team as like, it's kind of hard to kind of evaluate this guy because of all the things that were going on. Well, some people did. But me, I felt that we probably seen enough, wasn't very happy at what I saw, and I felt last year that they needed to let him go. But the Saints decided to retain him, and on some levels I understood because of the same things that I mentioned a few minutes ago, the injuries, the fact that the New Orleans Saints, you couldn't really see what this team actually was. So in the offseason, I remember doing a podcast and I can remember saying that I am willing to give him a chance. And I want this to be a Dennis Allen decision-led team because I wanted him to hire the coaches that he wanted, get the players that he wanted in order for the New Orleans Saints to see if this dude is a legit head coach or if he's just wasting their time. And the New Orleans Saints allowed him to do so. He went out there and got his coaches, got Marcus Robinson, got Joe Wood, got, the quarterback that he wanted, got Derek Carr via free agency, signed him to a $150 million deal, $100 million guaranteed, brought in Jamal Williams, did all these different things that Dennis Allen wanted to do. And I felt like it was the right decision because by giving him the reins, you no longer have the excuse that, oh, these were Shawn Pyton coaches. These were Shawn Pyton players. This was Shawn Pyton. I was just filling in. This season, the New Orleans Saints came into the season with all of the players that Dennis Allen decided that he wanted. The Saints came into the season with the coaches that Dennis Allen decided that he wanted to retain on top of hiring. And he had a healthy roster for the first time in his coaching career as a New Orleans Saints head coach. And on top of that, he came into the season with one of the easiest schedules, according to schedule makers, in the entire NFL. I want to say, for the exception of the Atlanta Falcons, the Saints have the easiest schedule in the National Football League. And right now, 10 games into the season, Dennis Allen is 5-5 as a head coach. And there have not been any major significant injuries to the key players, including your quarterback, who just went down. Even though he got injured early in the season, he was able to play. You still had Michael Thomas. You still had Chris Olave. You still had the majority of your offensive line intact. You had your cornerbacks. You had everything that you needed. And then on top of that, not to mention, I mean, it wasn't murderous row that you were facing at the quarterback position. There was only a handful of guys that you can look at that the Saints have played when it comes to the quarterback position that you looked at and said, man, this might be a tough outing for the New Orleans Saints. If you combine the fact that they played mediocre quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks, on top of the fact that a lot of the teams that they played were dealing with injuries, including yesterday. You didn't have KJ Osborne, who was the number 3 receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. You didn't have Justin Jefferson, who was the number 1 guy. You didn't have Kirk Cousins, who was the starting quarterback. You didn't have Cam Akers, who they traded for, was playing relatively well. And yet, you still allowed the Minnesota Vikings to make you look absolutely ridiculous. And not to mention, last week versus the Chicago Bears in the first half, you had Tyson Bagent looking like he was the real deal. Even though in the second half, he kind of fell back to earth. Over the last 5 games, the Saints have allowed opponents to have 92 points. 92 points in the first half. And that is on Dennis Allen, because Dennis Allen is a defensive-minded coach. Dennis Allen is the guy that we say, okay, we want to keep around because we know we'll have a good defense. But what happens when the calling card isn't working? My question is Allen. Why should they continue with him? Because every way the Saints could possibly lose, they have lost. They lost because of the ineptitude of the defense, the ineptitude of the offense. They've proven that they can't sustain a lead. They showed that they cannot keep up with some of these other teams. And also, he has shown that if they go up against a coach that has any type of cachet, any type of respect around the National Football League, that he cannot keep up. So my question is, what is holding the New Orleans Saints back from firing this guy? Like, there is nothing that Dennis Allen can possibly do that can convince me that he is the right guy for the job. I don't care if the New Orleans Saints, I do not care, because we all know that it's fool's gold at this particular point. We know that the New Orleans Saints are not going to be a legit franchise until they fire Dennis Allen and get rid of the remnants of what used to be. Everybody's trying to hold on to Shawn Pyton because that represents a time where the Saints were relevant. And if you're not a historian when it comes to the New Orleans Saints, the Saints outside of Shawn Pyton wasn't really a successful franchise. Yeah, you had, a couple of good years with Jim Haslett and Jim Mora, But for the most part, the Saints have been one of the most snake-bitten teams in the National Football League throughout history. And I think that there's a huge fear from guys like Mickey Loomis and the Saints Trust that they feel like they are going to have to revert back to those days because they don't know what winning looks like or continual success looks like outside of Shawn Pyton. So what they do is they're trying to hold on to what was, and they are trying to hold on with everything that they have. But in reality, they're actually setting themselves back because they're afraid to move on to the future. And you have a lot of people like that. You have a lot of people that's kind of old and set in their ways, or even set in their ways. They don't even have to be old. They just want to hold on to what once was. That's why you have a lot of people out here that are afraid to embrace change. They're afraid to embrace technology. They're afraid to embrace like, new cars coming out with computer systems inside of it, because stepping outside of the norm scares them, right? Having to learn something new scares them. The Saints are trying desperately not to be a snake-bitten franchise, that they're becoming a snake-bitten franchise. And I got a message for Mickey Loomis. Mickey Loomis has been with the Saints for a very, very long time. For 20 years. Mickey Loomis has been the general manager of the New Orleans Saints, if I'm not mistaken. And I think this is one of those situations where a person feels like they have complete immunity, that they feel like no matter what decisions they decide to make, nothing is going to happen to them. And I can say this right now. If the New Orleans Saints are moving like that, then we really have a problem, because there is nothing that can convince me that Dennis Allen is the answer. And I know for a fact that Mickey Loomis, if you're looking at the product on the field, you cannot really legitimately say to yourself that Dennis Allen is the answer. Now, you can allow your ego to lead the charge here and say, well, these fans don't know what they're talking about. I know what the team needs. They need Dennis Allen. You can miss me with all that stuff right there, right? Because your ego is going to be the reason why New Orleans fans start to tune out, why people start to feel like they're not interested in putting a winning product on the field. And right now, they're just trying to save face. Like, you can pretend that the house isn't on fire all you want to, but eventually you're going to get burned if you stay inside of the house. And everybody can see this house is burning down. It's burning down. It is going down in flames. And you're sitting there trying to continue to, I guess you're just continuing to go with the dinner party, but everybody is running out the house because they realize that it's on fire. Nobody cares that you came out the kitchen with the souffle and saying everything is cool, because we see what's going on. The New Orleans Saints need change at leadership. You can see it in the body language of the players. I mean, looking at Malcolm Roach on yesterday during after the game, and shouts out to New Orleans Football for the coverage. You can see the dejection on this dude's face. You can see how dejected he was. You can see how upset he was and how frustrated he was. How people putting their best foot forward. These players are putting their best foot forward, and it just seems like they're not getting the results that they want. And you look at the press conference of Dennis Allen, lifeless, uninspiring, dude looking like he lost his best friend. Is that the type of leadership that you need? I've seen head coaches and losses that were devastating, but they still stood up there and made me believe that better days were coming. Dennis Allen strikes me as a guy that has absolutely no answers. And these players are starting to realize that. And I'm telling you right now, they can like this guy all they want to. Like, they can like him. But at the same time, you can't fake the funk. Like, these guys know what it takes to win. So the Saints can continue to try to bring out Dennis Allen and try to make excuses and hide him during the offseason, where, he goes away for a certain amount of time and then he just resurfaces when everybody they feel like everybody has calmed down. But people are tired of this stuff. People are tired of it. When you start to see other teams start to improve, when they decide to move on, and you're sitting here watching your team just try to sweat to the oldies like Richard Simmons back in the day. It is absolutely depressing. And it's time. It is time. It is time for Dennis Allen to go. I don't care what they do, because the reality is all of this is fake and phony. We wouldn't even be having this conversation if the NFC South wasn't trash. We would not be having this conversation if the NFC South was, I don't know, like the AFC West or one of these other divisions where teams are jockeying for position when they're 2 and 3 games over 500. The only thing that is keeping Dennis Allen alive and making people not really pay that much attention, I'm talking about around the National Football League, is the fact that the NFC South is just god awful. Like, you can make an argument that you might see some history at the end of the season. You might see all 4 coaches get fired out of the NFC South. And this is what Mickey Loomis is hanging his hat on. This is what he's saying. Oh, we're leading the division. Seriously, there's this picture that's going around on social media of 3 trash bags and 4 trash bags. There are 4 trash bags. 3 of them are black and 1 of them are gold. And they're saying that is the Saints and the NFC South division. Basically saying that, everybody's still trash. It just, somebody got to win this division. And that is one of the reasons why I believe Dennis Allen is still in there. And Mickey Loomis feels like, oh, that's just good enough. We all know if the NFC South was competent, we would not be having this conversation. And I'm a firm believer in this. If I have to second guess that you're good, you're probably not good. I'll give you an example. Patrick Mahomes. Is Patrick Mahomes good? The majority of you, when I said that, I'm pretty sure it's like, man, what are you, crazy? Yeah, he good. It's a no-brainer. Now, ask yourself, is Derek Carr good? Ask yourself that. Some people will probably say, yeah, all right. You know what I'm saying? They'll probably try to put it into a box. Let me give you another example. Let's go to coaching. Is Andy Reid a good coach? Is Nick Sirianni a good coach? I mean, is Kyle Shanahan a good coach? The majority of you are probably saying yes, yes, and yes. Now ask yourself this. Is Dennis Allen a good coach just because the New Orleans Saints are at 500 and leading the division right now? Absolutely not. If I have to second guess if you're good or not, you're probably not as good. And right now, Dennis Allen is an absolute disaster. What excuse can the New Orleans Saints give the fan base to say that Dennis Allen deserves to coach in 2024? You got everything that you wanted. Everybody is at your disposal. And then on top of that, you have some of the worst luck that is happening to teams around you. And you can't even capitalize on that. You can't even capitalize on what is going on with the other teams. You come in with a full clip, a full arsenal of talent, and you still can't get the job done. Once again, Who Dat Nation and sports fans all around the world, what can Dennis Allen do to convince you that he's the answer? It is time to let this dude go. And I understand the future is scary when you don't know what's going to happen. The future is scary when you turn the reins over to something that you're not sure about. But guess what? It could be the best opportunity to ever happen to you in your entire life. I'll give you an example. Let me talk about something personally. I was living in Mississippi and I was working as a store manager, right? I got the opportunity to move from Mississippi to South Carolina due to my job. I knew absolutely nothing about South Carolina. Nothing. That was 11 hours away from everybody that I love. And I was going into an environment that I knew absolutely nothing about. But I took that chance. And by taking that chance, yes, the job that I had, the company went out of business. But in the process, I was able to start working at a radio station, something that I actually went to school to do and inspired to be a radio broadcaster. And I was given an opportunity. I wouldn't have got that opportunity if I wouldn't have took that risk. I wouldn't have been able to start working at a radio station, which helped me to be able to develop a podcast, which helped me to be able to move up the ladder to be the general manager of the station I'm at right now. I wouldn't have met my wife, who I met when I moved to South Carolina, and I wouldn't have had Paxton. So my point is, sometimes the unknown can be scary, but embracing the unknown could be one of the best decisions that you ever made in your entire life. If the Saints continue to hold on to the past, they're going to rob themselves out of the future. And the future may be Ben Johnson, an unproven guy who never been a head coach. But guess what? In 2006, you went with an unproven guy as offensive coordinator named Shawn Pyton, and the rest is history. The Saints have got to move on. You got to move on while these other teams are vulnerable. Because if you look around the NFC South, like honestly, if you look around the NFC South, the Saints really truly wet the bed this season. Because if you look around, a lot of these teams are young. The Carolina Panthers have a young quarterback in Bryce Young, a lot of young players on the team that's trying to learn how to win. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can say whatever you want about them, but they do a really good job at developing talent. And you look at the Atlanta Falcons, who are a young team and maybe even a quarterback away from being a legit franchise for the next couple of years. The New Orleans Saints wet the bed this season because they had the NFC South at its weakest, and they couldn't even capitalize on that. So right now, you can keep on trying to hold on to what you have right here, but those other teams are only going to get better, because I can tell you right now, these teams are going to go out here and they're probably going to be letting go of their coaches, and they're going to find somebody that's going to be able to get the best out of these players, and you're going to find yourself behind the 8 ball, and it's really going to look like 1994. If Mickey Loomis cannot see what we all see, then maybe he's been in his position too long. And maybe he feels like he has complete immunity to a point where nobody's going to let him go. And he's probably right. He's probably right, because the New Orleans Saints organization, once again, was so bad for so many years that they just feel like they're forever indebted to guys like Mickey Loomis. It's almost like one of them situations where, let's just say you came from poverty, right? And somebody like help you and they move you into this big, luxurious house, right? But you're just staying in this house but they're doing everything, right? So you don't want them to get mad at you because they might throw you out. That's how I feel like the Saints organization does. They're forever indebted because they won a Super Bowl. I'm talking Mickey Loomis and his, and what he did back in 2009 and signing Shawn Pyton. So they feel like they owe it to him to keep him around. So he feels like, I can just walk around here. I can do whatever I want. But if he's moving like that and you refuse to see what we all see, I think it's time for us to remove Mickey Loomis from his duties. If Mickey Loomis does not do the right thing this season, then maybe we need to start looking at him. Because I can tell you this, if the Saints are moving like that, we are in really deep trouble. Because if you think about this, the Philadelphia Eagles decided to let go Andy Reid, a guy who brought them to 5 straight NFC championship games and a Super Bowl appearance. And they felt that he couldn't get the job done. You look at Tom Coughlin, who just went into the Ring of Honor for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He won 2 Super Bowls with the New York Giants. And they still let him go. So why are you sitting around here lingering around and allowing this guy to be there just because, he won a Super Bowl back in 2009? It is about what have you done for me lately? And lately, they haven't been doing their job. So unless Mickey Loomis wants the entire Saints fan base to start looking at him and feeling like he's inept, he might want to focus on the guy that everybody is focusing on right now, and Dennis Allen, who has proven that as a head coach, he is inept. It's time for a change in New Orleans. I don't care what anybody says. There's like, people can go up here and try to map it up like, oh, well, Dennis Allen, if he wins these games, he wins this division, then he can keep his job. Like, if we're talking like that, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen consistently. Like, the Saints can come back off the bye week and go on this crazy run, but it's not going to be sustainable success. We all know that, because we all know it's all going to come down to, can these coaches make the right decision? I'm talking Dennis Allen. Can he make the right decision against a team like the Cowboys, like a team like the Eagles, like a team like the 49ers? And we all know, if you struggling and allowing Josh Dobbs, who is probably on his 15, got him out there looking like Lamar Jackson and Michael Vick combined, you got Tyson Bagent out here looking like Joe Montana in the first half. What do you think guys like Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, what do you think these guys are going to do to you? What do you think CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott going to do to you? They're going to carve you up. And if you combine Kyle Shanahan and Mike McCartney and all these other coaches, Nick Sirianni, man, Dennis Allen can't hold a candle to any of these guys. So you're basically setting yourself up for failure. You're basically trying to make people believe that this guy is the answer, and you're trying to prop him up. But in reality, we all know what's happening. We all know what's happening, man. So you can't fool the fan base anymore. This is getting absolutely ridiculous at this point. Now, I'm not saying that they need to fire him today. Like, let him go ahead and coach out the season. But when it's all said and done, it's time to go in a different direction. You had 2 opportunities to hire competent coaches. You had Doug Peterson in the building. Well, I take that back. You had him virtually in the building, because you basically played this whole thing because you knew for a fact that you wanted to hire Dennis Allen, and you turned the whole hiring process to a circus. I normally use this example like how when Charlie Brown is talking to his teachers, the teachers, they talk like, womp, 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 womp. That's basically what happened when Eric Bieniemy and Doug Peterson came into the building, because Shawn Pyton told you that you need to hire Dennis Allen. So you basically turn the whole thing into a circus. Now Doug Peterson, in the last 2 years, got the Jacksonville Jaguars looking like the most legit team in the AFC South. And under Eric Bieniemy, Sam Howell is leading the NFL in passing yards and completion percentage. And you're struggling with trying to find an identity for your offense and trying to be consistent when it comes to winning football games. You had 2 competent guys that would have done a better job than what you had, but you chose. Think about this. You chose a guy who had a 8-28 record. Well, you chose the guy who only had 8 wins as a head coach before you hired him over a guy who has had multiple playoff appearances and a Super Bowl championship. And then on top of that, you had opportunity to go with a guy who has multiple Super Bowls as a coordinator, but you went with Dennis freaking Allen. Like, seriously, enough is enough. Enough is enough, man. It is time for some change out here in New Orleans. It's time. It is time for some change in New Orleans. Because people, like, seriously, like, it is getting bad. It's getting to, like, when you have a fan base that is praying that a team loses enough games to make you as an organization understand that this guy isn't the answer, it's sad. You got Saints fans out here wanting the team to lose. wanting the team not to win the division. The whole role of being a fan is wanting your team to be successful. And you have Saints fans out here that are willing to sacrifice a season, sacrifice wins in order for this guy to be out the door. That is telling. That is telling. But they can play around if they want to. They can joke around and just think that Saints fans are just so loyal and so, so dependable that we can put anything out there on the field and they still gonna come out here and spending hard-earned money. You can believe that if you want to. But I often say, when you love New Orleans, they're gonna love you back. But if you show any signs of disloyalty to New Orleans, they will never forgive you for that. And I'm telling you right now, you're teetering on the line. You're teetering on the line if you feel like people are going to be doing this, coming to the game, spending their hard-earned money on a product that you know that you can make better, but you're refusing not to because you're afraid to embark on a future. Telling you, it's going to be very, very interesting at the end of the season if they decide to keep Dennis Allen. I can tell you that right now. Super, thank you very much for the $4.99. Says the problem is the front office don't respect the fans. We have a high number of mouth breathers, and it drowns out the intelligent discourse. Look, I think it's like this. I think that you have a lot of fans out here who understand football, who understand the X's and O's, understand what winning looks like, understand what success looks like. And then you have other fans that feel like their loyalty to the team is conjoined with the fact of not saying anything at all about the team or not criticizing the team at all. And for those fans out there, like, I don't even pay that much attention to them because in reality, none of them, for the most part, can hold a candle to what the hell I'm talking about. Seriously. I've been a Saints fan since I was 4 years old. I'm 37. I watched the best of the Saints. I watched the worst of the Saints. I've seen the Saints win championships, divisional championships. I've seen them do all those different things. So when I start talking about the New Orleans Saints, I know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm from the city. I was born and raised in the Ninth Ward. I tell people all the time, I'm about as New Orleans as a hot sausage on French from your local corner store. So I know what the hell I'm talking about. I don't care. I don't care if I no longer live there. I am embedded in New Orleans. So I know what the hell I'm talking about. I ain't just get on this ride when Drew Brees came to town. We talking about Steve Walsh, Bobby Abel. I'm talking about Jim Everett. I'm talking about Wade Wilson. I'm talking about Danny Warfel, Billy Joe Hobart, Billy Joe Tolliver. I'm talking about guys like that. I'm talking about Todd Bowman, Aaron Brooks. I know what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to the Saints. And a lot of people that follow the team know what they're talking about. But then you have some clowns out here that just feel like their love for the team is conjoined. So they'll come on Twitter or X or whatever they call it, and they'll be bold. You got a bunch of cyber tough guys out there that if they seen you in person wouldn't be talking none of that noise, but they'll tell you how stupid you are, or they'll use the R word or something like that to describe what you're talking about. But if you seen them in person, they'll be quiet as church mice. I don't get into that. I get into what the real deal is. If the team is looking like slow, I'm gonna call it out. If they look like they need to improve, even if they're winning, I'm gonna call it out. If they're winning and they look good, I'm gonna call it out. But the biggest, the dumbest thing that a person can do is feel like, oh, I ain't gonna say nothing because I'm a real Saints fan. Like, you're not a real Saints fan. You're a moron. Like, who is going to sit up here and subject themselves to abuse and say, I ain't going to say nothing because I'm committed to the cause? Like, what? You got to be out your freaking mind. Not here, not over here. You can believe whatever you want to. But we legitimate it is. You got some people that just found the channel, just found the State of the Saints podcast and feel like I'll be biting off other people, which is hilarious to me. You just late to the party. So bump what the heck they talking about over there. We gonna keep it real here. I'm not sugarcoating for anybody. We have created a podcast over here because we talk about the tough stuff, the conversations that people are afraid to have. We ain't afraid to have them over here. Because right now, this team is an absolute joke, and it shouldn't be. And it's all because of what they have put together, this infrastructure that they have put together, trying to hold on to the days of yesteryear. Looking about as desperate as a person with their last $2, going to Vegas and putting it all on black. And if they don't win, they don't go home. That's how the Saints looking. Desperation all over. Desperation on the field. Desperation in the locker room. Desperation when it comes to wins. This team just looks desperate and sad at this particular point. If I can think of a proper imagery to describe this, if you ever seen the 5 Heartbeats and you seen Eddie Kane standing outside of the concert when Robert Townsend and the crew and Leon came out and he opened up his trench coat and he had that old costume on when they were performing back in the day. And he said, nights like this, I wish that raindrops would. Oh, that's how they look. They look like Eddie Kane trying to beg and plead to get back into the 5 Heartbeats. Every time I see Dennis Allen as the head coach, pure and utter desperation. But I can tell you what, wins ain't gonna fall. Well, not consistently, as long as you have Dennis Allen as your head coach. I can tell you that right now. It ain't happening. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Some of y'all probably seen. Some of y'all like, man, with the 5 Heartbeats. Come on, man. A heart is a house of love. And I learned. All right, let's go. All Saints players got paid today. I didn't get a check. Exactly. Actually, I think they get paid on Tuesdays, right? I could be wrong. Tell them, TJ. Let's see. Winston was getting the ball out, but he is typical Winston. Do good, 3 drives. Next 3, he's missed a pick 6. Well, I can tell you this right now. I like Jameis. I like the energy. I like the sense of urgency, but he's not the answer. Like, he's not the answer. I get, like, we try to debate this and go all day. Jameis Winston is not the answer, right? Jameis Winston is almost 30 years old, and he continues to do the things that people feel would never allow him to be a starting quarterback. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve to be in the league, but I'm just saying at this particular point, based on the practices that he shows on a consistent basis, nobody is going to seriously 100% give him the reins as a starting quarterback without some type of backup plan. It's just not happening. And I like James, but it is what it is. Like, basically what you saw in the game yesterday is pretty much what people have been saying about Jameis. Like, he will give you so many different great moments. And I say this all the time. I said this on X as well. I said Jameis Winston is the most no, yes player you ever seen. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, when somebody makes a decision, no, and then it works out. Yes, that's kind of what he is. And you can't play like that. Like, you can't play like that. It's exciting as a fan, and I stand by this. And people gave me criticism for this. I said this was the most exciting Saints game of the season, because even if you're going to lose, at least let's get some excitement out the deal. Like, when you look at Derek Carr, it's like watching paint dry, because I stand on this too. Derek Carr only cares about Derek Carr's success. If it means putting somebody else on and sacrifices himself, he's not going to do it, because Derek Carr is the type of guy that will have an opportunity to throw a ball down the field, but he will second guess it because they have 2 defenders coming in on it. He doesn't trust that arm strength to a point where he can just thread that needle right there, because there's a chance that it can get picked off and it might affect his stats, because that's the only thing, if you're talking about Derek Carr, that he has to stand up against any of these other quarterbacks in the league is his stats. But I can tell you this, all stats aren't created equal. If Derek Carr has a 60 or close to 70% completion percentage, but he's checking it down to Alvin Kamara, and Alvin Kamara has 12 catches for, 23 yards. Guess what? It's still going to be a high completion percentage for Derek Carr. It's still going to look appealing. And we all know once we step away from games, we don't remember what happened. So when the stat line says that Derek Carr completed 67% of his passes or 70% of his passes in a game, we're not putting that into context. If Patrick Mahomes was completing 60% of his passes, and we know that the majority of the time Patrick Mahomes is pushing the ball down the field, that's pretty damn impressive. That's impressive because we're actually seeing him push the ball down the field, and he's still completing it at a high percentage. But when you're checking it down and those check downs are going towards your stats and making it look more appealing, then standpoint will say, well, Derek Carr is a really decent quarterback. He completes like 70% of his passes. He has 10 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. But once again, all stats aren't created equal. All high completion percentages aren't created equal. All touchdowns to interception ratios are not created equal. That is one of the main reasons why when you start analyzing players, you can't just put stats out there to validate them because it don't always tell the story. You got to ask yourself, if Derek Carr facilitated 33 fourth-quarter comebacks, you got to ask yourself, number one, how many other games in the fourth quarter he was able to play in that they needed to erase a deficit and didn't? That's number one. And number two, if you have 33 fourth-quarter comebacks, how is it that in 33 instances you were put in that position? Once again, folks, all stats aren't created equal. And I think when you look at that, on top of the fact, and look, let me say this before I move on with this. Because we are so enamored with the Saints, we're so focused on the Saints, we don't really pay that much attention to other teams like we do the Saints. We know what's going on. Like, we know what's going on with the Eagles and Cowboys and even like some of the snake-bitten teams out there like the Panthers. Like, from a Cliff Note standpoint, as Saints fans, we understand what's going on with that. But we don't know that like we know our team. So when somebody presents Derek Carr to us with a high completion percentage, and look, I was guilty of this too. Go back and look at the archives. I'm not sitting up here saying that I'm absolved of this because I was lobbying for him to be here. We fall in love with the stats and what is presented to us because we didn't really analyze the game because we're so focused on our team. So when somebody says, well, Derek Carr has a high completion percentage and he has a big touchdown to interception ratio that's pleasing to the eye, like man, bring him on. Bring him on. Like let him play for us. We need that. But then when you peel back the layers and you see it in that maybe this guy isn't the best guy for the job. And I can tell you right now, I already told y'all, like, do I know this dude personally? No, I don't. But I'm telling you, he strikes me as a guy that cares more about self-preservation than anything else. He is willing to call out a teammate to get the light off of himself. He'll bring up himself and saying, I need to take the blame. I'll give you an example. Like Jameis Winston or not, this tells you the character and what's the difference. When Derek Carr threw the ball down the field to Chris Olave, and Chris Olave wasn't even supposed to be in the route, right? He was just supposed to be able to push his man down the field to get him away from the play. But Derek Carr decides to throw the ball down the field. He becomes so animated with Chris Olave that he's like, run, right? Jameis Winston threw a pass down the seam to A.T. Perry, and he dropped it. And what did Jameis Winston do? Did Jameis Winston say, oh, come on, man? He patted himself on the chest and said, my fault. Even though we know that it wasn't his fault. But that just shows you right there that he's not going to beat up his teammate, to try to save himself or try to save perception when it comes to him. So those are the type of things I feel like you can't fake. And when those players saw that, and you don't have enough cachet with them to be able to keep up, with, you know, what's going on as far as him being with the team for a long period of time. Like, these guys don't know you. They don't know you like that. They don't know your personality. They don't know, you know, they don't know you like that, right? You got to build up some level of rapport for them to be able to understand your personality. And even though they probably, you know, squash the beef for the most part, it's probably because they're professional. But outside of that, like, you already showed them who you are. And guys aren't going to forget that. And I feel like that's the reason for Chris Olave's body language. That's the reason I feel like guys on the sidelines, you know, with the ho-hum personality, you can't fake the funk. People are going to be like, oh, man, they absorbed that. Let me tell y'all something. And y'all know this from a personal standpoint. If you in a relationship with somebody, right, and they say something to you, it's going to hurt you. Like, time might go on and you might forgive that person, but in the back of your mind, you like, I see what they're capable of. So I got to guard myself in this situation. When those teammates saw that, they saw him getting all animated on the sideline and reflecting blame. You may have stopped doing that in a game, but they still know deep down inside you have that inside of you. And people aren't going to forget that. They're not. So that is very, very telling when it comes to Derek Carr. And I just feel like he going to have to really get back into the good graces of his teammates, you know, and really like change behavior for a while in order for, in my personal opinion, for them to really just buy into what he's selling. You know, it probably even take a little bit of a change in the locker room in order to for that to happen. But I don't see that happening. I don't feel like he's the type of guy where you have to change a locker room around for. Like, he's one of the main reasons why the team isn't successful. You change around a locker room for a guy that you feel like is worth it. Like, for example, when the Carolina Panthers had Steve Smith and they had Cam Newton, and they felt like they kind of clashed a little bit. Cam Newton was the young, athletic guy that was going to lead the Carolina Panthers somewhere, and Steve Smith, even though he had a bunch of great years and a Hall of Fame resume, he was at that time long in the tooth. So who you think they're going to give it up for? They're going to give it to Cam Newton, the guy that they feel like going to win something. The Saints are not going to sacrifice what they have in the locker room for Derek Carr. So it's going to take some time for Derek Carr to get back into the good graces, like real seriously, not just about what they saying in front of the camera, what some of y'all buy for some apparent reason. Oh, man, he said this. Like, man, come on, bro. I like to interest y'all in PR teams. Guys are going to go out there and say, man, we suck, we stink. This dude right here is responsible for that. They need to get this bum off the team. Y'all think they really going to sit up here and say that? They're going to say the PC thing because first off, they don't want to get fined, don't want to get cut. And then on top of that, you know, they don't want to mess up the rapport of the team. Yeah, I mean, these guys are professionals at the end of the day. So they're going to say the right things. But turn that camera off. Turn that camera off and see what's really going on. It's time to clean house. Get out the bleachers, fine. So GM, head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks got to go. Look, it starts with the head coach. And look, I'm not one of those people. I'm not one of those people that just say, oh, they need to move on. They need to move on. I like to give a plan too, because I don't want to be one of those people. Like, a lot of people feel like, oh man, they need to do this. But what's the plan? Right? What is the plan? This is my solution. This is my solution. This is my solution. Number one, they need to fire Dennis Allen at the end of the season. Not right now, at the end of the season. I don't care if the Saints make the playoff. I do not care. Fire this dude. Right? Because here's the reality of what people aren't paying attention to. The Saints are struggling with the easiest schedule in the National Football League. When you win the division, you face all division champions of the respective conferences that you have to play. So if you have to play the NFC East, you play in the Cowboys. Do you think that the Saints under Dennis Allen in 2024 can knock off the Dallas Cowboys? Probably not, right? Let's just say you played the AFC East, so you're probably going to be playing Shawn Pyton's division, AFC West. So you're going to have to play the Kansas City Chiefs, right? If you play a team in the NFC West, you're going to have to play the 49ers. Your schedule is going to be really, really hard. So if you're struggling against Tyson Bagent and Josh Dobbs and Ryan Tannehill, keeping him in the game, and all these other guys, Gardner Minshew out there lighting you up, what do you think Dak Prescott is going to do? What do you think Patrick Mahomes is going to do? What do you think Brock Purdy is going to do? See, you can make this thing, like you can say, oh, well, he won a division, but you're only setting yourself up for failure. That's number one. But back to what I was saying. First off, you need to fire Dennis Allen. You need to fire him and replace him with a coach that is offensively innovative, a coach that's not afraid to hold players accountable, and you need somebody that's going to be able to continuously keep guys motivated. Like them or not, respect them or not, I know what's going on at Michigan, but Jim Harbaugh is the answer for the New Orleans Saints. First off, the reason why is Jim Harbaugh can get the best out of what you actually have. The New Orleans Saints at this particular point are stuck with Derek Carr. Like Jim Harbaugh or not, during the time when the 49ers had Alex Smith, under Jim Harbaugh, he played his best. When they decided to move on from Alex Smith, send him to Washington, and go with Colin Kaepernick, he put up some of the best numbers of his career. You look at Stafford, he turned it around. You looked at Michigan, they couldn't beat Ohio State, he turned it around. The guy knows what he's doing. Now, you can say all this stuff and have a moral compass like, man, I don't want him on my squad. I don't want him. I don't need him. Man, we don't need that type of energy out there. They said the same thing about Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll left USC. And, a lot of scrutiny was behind him when he left USC. But guess what? Seattle, when he went to Seattle, I don't remember Seattle really having too many losing seasons. So you can talk about moral compass and all that stuff if you want to, but if you follow college football, everybody is doing stuff behind the scenes. Like, seriously, everybody. Like, yeah, come on, man, give me a freaking break. Just because these guys aren't getting caught don't mean that they're not using backdoor tactics in order for them to acquire certain players. It happens. This happened with Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. It happened with USC. It happened at, Texas and had some issues. Like, you name it. Name the school. And you can probably go back and read the article that has the school looking bad. Jim Harbaugh, to me, is the answer. Because right now, you have a bunch of guys on your roster that you are contractually obligated to and are stuck with. So you need a coach that's going to be able to get the best out of these guys and what you actually have until you figure out how to manipulate the books, how to get yourself back into cap compliance and be able to get some of these other guys out here. That's number one. Number two, offensive coordinator, Pete Carmichael, get him up out of here. Because right now, once again, all he's doing is saving face, trying to make people, make people believe job, but he's not. Get yourself a young offensive coordinator, somebody, man, pay a little bit more money, get a guy like Cliff Kingsbury from USC and put him alongside Jim Harbaugh. Then you got yourself a guy that can build a team and a guy that is offensively innovative, but just like, Dennis Allen, just not good at being a head coach. Defensive coordinator, you go out here and you try to find somebody, within the ranks of on a staff, maybe somebody like, that's around Vic Fangio, around somebody else that has competence. Or heck, you know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't got no problem with Joe Woods. I ain't got no problem with Marcus Robinson. Like, Marcus Robinson coaches the secondary. This guy has the secondary looking real, real good. Joe Woods is doing a pretty decent job, but if you don't want to move, if you want to move on from that, find yourself somebody that's under a coaching tree that you feel could help the defense improve. And then in the NFL draft, you draft a quarterback. You draft a freaking quarterback in the first round. Don't be around here lingering around with Derek Carr thinking that he's going to change his fortunes. You get Jim Harbaugh in here to help Derek Carr in the best way possible, and you develop the quarterback. I'm hearing a lot of people say Jaden Daniels. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at Michael Penix. I'm not mad at any one of those guys. Get yourself a quarterback that's not afraid to move around in the pocket, throw the ball down the field, make the smart decisions, and then you improve on the defensive line. Maybe in the second round, you draft yourself a defensive lineman, somebody that's going to be able to rush the quarterback consistently. Get yourself some speed at the linebacker position. You know, I don't know who's in free agency right now, but get yourself some speed at the linebacker position. Because Mario Davis, God bless him, he's getting up there in age. And I'm not mad at him. Like you ain't going to be the same person you was in your 20s. But that is how you improve. That is how you improve. You improve by going out here and getting a coach that can lead men. And based on your circumstances, you need a coach that's going to be able to play and make you competitive at what you have until you fix the contract situations. Because right now you got a lot of guys on the books that you're basically stuck with. So trying to find another coach at this particular stage that's young might be a smart decision. Like, it depends on who you get. I mean, Ben Johnson, you know, some of these other younger coaches out here, Ken Dorsey. You could probably find yourself like somebody that's young like that that's probably will give you some levels of success. But I think most of those guys are probably trying to go to places that they have a draft pick where they could actually draft a quarterback. Like I can see Ben Johnson probably being the next head coach of the Chicago Bears because there's a chance where he can probably get Caleb Williams or even be able to turn Justin Fields' career around. So it might be a little tough for you to be able to go out here and entice some of these younger coaches. But somebody that's been around and has a resume of turning teams around, and Jim Harbaugh, I'm calling them up. I'm calling them up. Straight up. I'm calling up Jim Harbaugh as my head coach, and I'm trying to get Cliff Kingsbury back into the NFL as the offensive coordinator. That's my solution. And I'm drafting. Look, my first choice, I'm sorry, LSU fans, Michael Penix would be my first choice. Jaden Daniels would be my second choice. And if, you know, none of those guys are available at that particular point, I wouldn't be mad if you got somebody like Bo Nix or something like that. But you have to find the future. You have to be able to find the future of this franchise. And I'm not talking about no left tackle either. Left tackle, yeah, it is imperative that you get the left tackle, or I don't know what you're doing with Trevor Penning. Hopefully it works out, you know what I'm saying? Get him like a red shirt year. But look, you need a quarterback. You need a quarterback. And I ain't talking about them quarterbacks that's stationary. Embark on the future and get yourself a quarterback that is kind of relatable to the modern day NFL. I'm not saying he got to be Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick, but have the ability to run when plays break down, because that is the role that a lot of these quarterbacks are playing right now. And you got to get on it. And you can't just be the guy that's standing up against the wall when everybody trying to learn a new dance. You can't be, oh, I'm too cool to dance. I'm posted up on the wall like this. I'm posted up. Like, bump all that, man. Like, get involved. You know what I'm saying? Like, try to learn that two-step your doggone self. The NFL is evolving. You have to have a mobile quarterback in today's league. Absolutely. Jerry, last Saints merch I bought was a Jameis Winston jersey in 22. Not mobile, smart. Yeah, speed kills on our fast track. That is what Atlanta did for the good years. Yeah, I mean, look, you got to be able to get the talent. You got to be able to get the best talent possible. And I know people say, man, I don't trust the New Orleans Saints, when it comes to the pass rush and they don't be drafting right. I disagree with that. I really do. I disagree. I think the problem is when we're evaluating what they have done, we only look at the negative. Like for every Peyton Turner, there's a Trey Hendrickson. For every Marcus Davenport, there's a Carl Granderson. Like for every whiff on a Zach Bond, there's Caden Ellis. Like Caden Ellis was good, or Alex Anzalone. Like the Saints have done a good job drafting guys. The problem is, just like every other situation, we only focus on the negative. And because now I won't say that. Let me backtrack on that. It's not the fact that we focus on the negative. The Saints are making us feel so negative that we start to think about the worst case scenarios and the worst moments and the worst decisions. But if you peel back the layers and use logic, you'll see. Like it's a boom and bust type thing. So they can find the right players. The problem is they just try to stick to the same script over and over again because it worked for them a couple times. Like you can't just be enamored because a guy is 6'7", 260 and think he has long wingspan, so he's going to get around the offensive lineman. Like you can't be like that. Like you can't just think, oh, this guy can't really run in between the tackles, but on third down he can catch the ball. Oh, this guy is fast, so we can send him on street routes. Like, how about finding players that can do a multifaceted of things where you don't look one-dimensional? A lot of times we know what the team is going to do offensively when we see certain players come into the game defensively. But you can't look at that defensive line and tell me that you don't need to change. I think it's a start with Carl Granderson and Colin Saunders. I think those are the bright spots. Brian Brzee is definitely starting to come along, and I feel like I'm interested to see what he's going to be in year 2. But Cam Jordan, God bless him. If you're going to keep him around, you're going to have to cut down the percentage of his snaps and bring somebody else in. Your arrogance has cost you because you had an opportunity to get a guy like Chase Young. Chase Young, in his first action with the San Francisco 49ers, had a half of a sack, and I want to say he had 2 tackles for a loss. So you're telling me if you would have traded for Chase Young, you don't think Chase Young would have been a factor in that game versus the Vikings? I think he would have. So that's my solution. I'm not, like I said, I'm not one of those people that they need to fire him. Why? Because they just do. No, you fire him and because of your circumstance, you hire a coach that is known for being successful and has a reputation of building a team. The best thing about the New Orleans Saints is the talent is there. Regardless of what you say about Jameis Winston, he showed you that the talent is there. Like, he showed you that a lot of these young players, if you give them the opportunity, they can excel. Just give them the opportunities. Just give them an opportunity to make a play. So the talent is there. We've seen it. It exists. It's not speculation anymore. We know if the more reps A.T. Perry gets, the better he's going to get. We know that the more chances you give Chris Olave and trust him and not just be so passive I want to throw you the ball, but be smart, giving this guy an opportunity. The opportunity that he had at Ohio State when C.J. Stroud was willing to give him a chance at a 50-50 ball. Sometimes it comes down to my best versus your best. I can think about last year. This didn't work in the Saints' favor. Kirk Cousins, when the Saints were playing in the UK, the Vikings needed a play. And Justin Jefferson was on Marshawn Lattimore. And Kirk Cousins seen man-to-man coverage and threw the ball at Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson came down with the football. That's trust right there. That is saying my guy is better than your guy. When you have some really good guys on your team, but you're running an offense as if you don't trust them to be able to make plays, guys start to get discouraged. They start to get upset They start to get frustrated because, look, I'm more than just running this drag route and just look for me when I'm open. Throw that ball up in the air and watch what I do with it. Guys want to feel like they're needed. And like I said yesterday on the podcast, there's nothing worse than a person that feels like they possess a certain skill set, a certain ability, and they're not given the opportunity to use it. Go look at the body language, the energy when Chris Olave seen Jameis Winston come in the game. Look how that man turned up. Look how A.T. Perry turned up. Lynn Bowden got a catch. Do you know what that did to that young kid? A 12-yard catch probably changed the way this dude probably thinks about himself today. Because the majority of the time when he comes into the game, he's just in there to block. But he gets an opportunity to make a catch in a National Football League in a professional game. You don't know what those type of things do to a kid. But the fact that Jameis Winston is willing to throw the pass, like, say whatever you want about Jameis Winston. Yes, you know what I'm saying? Like, he is reckless with the football. But one thing you can say, he is willing to fall on the sword for his teammates. He is willing to take the scrutiny of throwing an interception to allow his wide receivers to make a play. And that's not always the best decision in the world, but God dog it, it helps that wide receiver build confidence, and that may be the confidence that he needs in order for him to live up to his true potential, or a running back to live up to their true potential. So it's not about, you know what I'm saying, that all the time. And Philip, he says, I'm sorry, man, you can't sell me on. I'm not trying to sell you on Jameis Winston. See, that's the thing. Y'all take one particular thing out of it and you think that I'm trying to sell you on it. I'm not trying to sell you on a damn thing. What I'm telling you is when you instill a level of confidence in a person, it can go a long way. This isn't a lobby for Jameis Winston to be a starting quarterback. This isn't a lobby for Jameis Winston to be the future of the franchise. What I'm saying is he is willing to sacrifice scrutiny. Like, think about this. This dude is known for making reckless decisions, and yet he is still willing to make those reckless decisions in order for his wide receivers or his running back to make plays. It's not about, oh, he needs to be the start. I'm not trying to sell you on nothing. I already said at the top of the show, maybe you just got here. I already said Derek Carr isn't the answer. Jameis Winston isn't the answer. But at the same time, I'm telling you, as a wide receiver, when a quarterback is throwing the ball to you in a 50-50 situation, that builds up your confidence. If you're a wide receiver that is not known for getting the football like Lynn Bowden, him catching that 12-yard pass probably did his confidence something that he probably didn't even know it can be. You got to be able to trust the guys that you're with. I'm not saying throw the ball into harm's way every play, but if you're actually seeing a guy at practice and you're seeing him make plays, I mean, we saw it. We see what this dude can be. I'm talking Chris Olave. We know what A.T. Perry can be. Give these guys the opportunity to make plays. Give these guys the opportunity to go out there and show what they have. And it may not work out. It may not work out all the time. But I'm telling you right now, man, these dudes want to matter. You don't think Chris Olave is looking at his homeboy Garrett Wilson out there for the Jets? I mean, every time Zach Wilson throws the football and he's under the rest, he's looking at Garrett Wilson. He's throwing the ball towards Garrett Wilson. And Garrett Wilson coming down with the football. And you don't think this man is looking at that like, man, I can do that too? You got to keep in mind, man, you look at their stat line, their last season at Ohio State, it wasn't very far off. So there you go. What's good, Saints fans and TJ? I'm a diehard Falcon fans, and I have to say, y'all need to stick with Jameis Winston. He will give you the best chance to win. Well, look, here's the thing. I'm not going to get it. Like, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not, because that's just a whole different can of worms right there. Like, talking about this Derek, like, to me, neither one of these guys are the answer. Like, seriously, all jokes aside, I think the Saints just need to move on from both guys. From a Jameis Winston standpoint, he's not ever going to get what he needs with Shawn Pyton, with Dennis Allen. He's just not. Dennis Allen doesn't trust him. Dennis Allen doesn't believe that the Saints have the best chance to win. because that's not his personality. Dennis Allen personality is lock and step with a guy like Derek Carr, a careful guy, you know what I'm saying, 10-2, if you will. Like, you're driving a car and you got both hands on the steering wheel, like he 10-2. That is what Dennis Allen is. Dennis Allen is a 10-2 type guy. Like, if, let's just say, for example, if the Saints had Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Eagles, as their head coach, that's kind of the personality that Jameis Winston has. Like, they kind of lock and step. Like, Nick Sirianni doesn't care. Like, he fits the Philadelphia fan base like a glove. Like, he understands that. He's aggressive. He feels like his guys are better than your guys. He's unapologetic. You see him looking at the camera like, I know I'm the ish. My team is the ish, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. That is the type of energy that Jameis Winston needs in a head coach. And you also need him to be able to reel Jameis Winston in. Jameis Winston, for the most part, was making some of those decisions because you have a passive coaching staff. Like, when he first threw the pass and it was intercepted, somebody should have just pulled him to the side and said, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, man, look, I see what you're doing. You know, I know you trying to push the ball, but we got to be smart about it. Give him that Microsoft Pro tablet and say, hey, this dude was wide open right here. Just go with that. It's kind of like when the Saints played the Patriots and Shawn Pyton was the head coach at the time. And Jameis Winston threw the ball up to Marquez Callaway, and he walked over to Shawn Pyton, and he was like, and Shawn Pyton asked him, what you doing? And Jameis Winston replied, it's guys playing. And Shawn Pyton said, well, the Patriots got a guy too. You know what I'm saying? Like, but in that conversation, it just tells you, like, hey, man, look, I see what you're doing, but hey, man, calm down, settle down with that, make smarter decisions. Nobody is on the sideline was going to be able to give Jameis Winston that type of energy because everybody, for the most part, are just passive. They just passive. Oh, you know, like the whole coaching staff and the team reflects the leadership. So if you are very passive and guys feel like they can get away with some things, they ain't gonna do it. So I just feel like the energy that Jameis Winston has, it just does not translate to what Dennis Allen is trying to do. Derek Carr is one of those guys just fits that mold. He's a careful guy. He's not going to rattle the cage. He's not going to be too aggressive. I mean, does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? Like, look at how Derek Carr plays the quarterback position, and look how Dennis Allen coaches the team. And tell me that how Derek Carr plays the position doesn't resemble how Dennis Allen coaches the team. I mean, they're basically identical. You know how we used to like praise Shawn Pyton and Drew Brees for kind of being on the same wavelength, right? Oh, they're so much alike. It's like they can finish each other's sentences. Same way with Derek Carr. Not all wavelengths are praised here. Sometimes like the wavelength be like, man, this is bland, vanilla, boring, uninteresting. Like, I want the quarterbacks to be careful, but not to a point where they're so careful they're caring more about their stats than actually making plays. That's when I feel like that's when a problem starts to arise here. Let's see. And how did it work out in Oakland? It didn't work out at all. A broke clock is right twice a day equals DA. TJ, is this Michael Thomas' last season in New Orleans? I think so. I think it is. Look, I like Michael Thomas as well as the next man, but you combine the fact that he had these injuries and not being able to stay healthy, and I honestly really don't know. Like, based on what I've been seeing as far as the offense is concerned, I don't know if it's just the fact that Michael Thomas had just lost a step or just the fact that they're not using him in a proper way. I don't know. I really just don't know. All I know is Michael Thomas, when Shawn Pyton was running plays, this dude seemed to be wide open most of the time. And now it just seems like every time he catches the ball, he on a suicide mission. It's like he had to make a business decision. Like, you're not going to keep this dude. Like, it's amazing he played this long. Like the way that the Saints are using him offensively, they mostly like send him, like I said, on suicide missions where he's going across the field when he's going to have to absorb a hit from a safety or a linebacker, and he you know, it's rather they're going to jar the ball away from him, he's going to come up with a man catch. And look, yes, you can use him like this, man, but man, that's not the way to use the guy, especially like when you know he's capable of getting yards after the catch. So they got to find a way to do that. The team wants Jameis Winston to be their leader, not Derek Carr. The good and the bad, they showed you that as soon as Jameis Winston came into the game. Yeah, I don't know if they want him to be the leader or not, but you just can't fake. You just can't fake the funk with a guy. Like sometimes it's almost like Carson Wentz and Nick Foles, right? Like if you look at both quarterbacks, right? Carson Wentz possessed more talent, better skill set than Nick Foles. But Nick Foles was the fan favorite inside of the locker room. He was the guy that everybody kind of, you know, gravitated to, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, he was like one of the guys, right? You know what I'm saying? He was in the locker room. He was the one that was, you know, joking around, having fun. Carson Wentz was more of a, you know, you the franchise quarterback, right? Guys had issues the way he carried himself. Made it seem like maybe I'm up here, y'all down here, right? And that rubbed people the wrong way. And people rather, you know, the team rather saw Nick Foles as their quarterback than Carson Wentz. So to me, you have to be able to ingratiate yourself into the locker room. You have to show appreciation. Sometimes you have to take blame when it's not your fault to show people that you are a leader and they can depend on you. And on top of that, your game got to speak for itself. Like you can't just be saying the right things and doing all the right things, but ain't playing or not helping your team win or focus more on self-preservation and stat padding than trying to throw the ball down the field. I mean, to me, I just feel like he just rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I'm talking Derek Carr. I think when he first came in, he basically, you know, presented himself like he was going to be the savior of the franchise. But in reality, like, let's just keep it 100. Derek Carr has done absolutely nothing in his career for him to walk into anybody's locker room and say, like, change is on the way. Yeah, he put up some decent seasons. Yeah, he done that, but where the playoff victories at? Right? Where the Super Bowl appearances at? You ain't got none. So you can't just walk up in there and just because you got a wife who's a blind and Drew Brees has a wife who's a blind and you got 4 kids and Drew Brees have 4 kids. I mean, look, you're not Drew Brees, dude. So you got to put your head down and be humble. You know, I mean, we all remember Drew Brees walking into the Saints facility with that ugly shirt on and signing his first contract with the Saints. He ain't come up in there like, man, help is on the way. I'm a multi-time Pro Bowler here. No, he earned the respect of the fan base through his philanthropy and also through his hard work and his dedication on the field from being a true leader. That is how you gain the respect of the fan base, and that's how you gain the respect of your peers. Not walking up in there like, oh, I threw for 4,000 yards and the Raiders didn't want me. That was their mistake. You guys know what you're doing because you signed me. Nah, bro. Nah, man, that ain't how it works. You got to go out there and put that work in. I guarantee you, if Derek Carr would have came up in there and, you know, was humble about the situation, which at the beginning it seemed like he was, but he was putting up some numbers and, you know what I'm saying, and making some plays and showing a level of toughness. Like everybody, like we all know, man, New Orleans would have embraced him like none other. But when you come up in there like you politicking, shaking hands and kissing babies and stuff like that and talking about how much you texting your teammates, it just seemed like to me like you just trying. It just seemed like you just trying too hard there, bruh. You know, and that reeks of insecurities. And to me, I feel like, you know, that's not the move, man. Nick Foles was more consistent with the football than Wentz. I don't know about that. I mean, before he got hurt, man, Carson Wentz was pretty doggone good. Like when he tore his LCL, ACL in that game versus the Rams, his career was never the same. But he was on pace to be MVP that year. I mean, so to me, like he had all the talent, but at the same time, like I said, man, it's not just about talent. Like there's so many great talented guys who don't end up panning out with teams because they can't ingratiate themselves into the locker room. They can't embed themselves into the culture. And you have think about guys like Antonio Brown, you know what I'm saying? Some of these other guys out here, Le'Veon Bell, really good, talented guys, but could never really ingratiate themselves into a locker room and really, you know what I'm saying, just become like one of the leaders that the team needs them to be. It was more about self-preservation for both of them. It's about getting my stats, getting my touches, making sure that this touchdown dance I was practicing on since Monday, I can be able to do it. If you're doing that, then that's not the move, man. Brian not saying he's great, feels like he hasn't been same since he broke his leg. I don't know what we're talking about. We're talking about Carson Wentz. Yeah. You need a quarterback that matches the locker room. Yeah. Look, you want your quarterback to make the right decisions, but you don't want him to be beyond reproach, right? Look, one thing about Drew Brees, he was able to be relatable to a point. You know what I'm saying? Like he was able to talk to some of those undrafted guys, made them feel like they was a part of the team. Like even though he probably knew for a fact that this guy's probably going to be here for a week and they probably going to cut him, right? He'd probably be a practice squad guy. But that's what leaders are supposed to do. They're supposed to be able to approach everybody, even though we know that all locker rooms aren't created equal, but make guys feel like they are equal. Bro, this is in New Orleans. The only person who had that menace mentality lately that we lost was CJ Gardner. Yeah, and that's the thing too. A lot of you want your football team to resemble the personality of the coach. When you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers or the city of Pittsburgh, you think about tough, right? Steel city, right? You think about no nonsense. I mean, you think about the cold. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know what I'm talking about here, man. The fog in the air. And then, you know what I'm saying, you go out there, your football team laying the wood, you know what I'm saying, like laying guys out, physical football teams. Feel like I gotta say pause right there, like Cameron. But anyway, it's supposed to resemble your city, like Philadelphia and what they doing right now. I mean, like I said, Nick Sirianni looking at the camera. You know what I'm saying? Like being mad, disrespectful to the opponent, not giving a you know what about what the score is, man. We're going to keep on playing our game plan. That resembles the city, right? I mean, you got the culture that the New Orleans Saints have right now is not lock in step with the culture of the city. Like we all know, like I said, man, New Orleans, like we the real deal. Like we in your face, we unapologetic. We, look, if you disrespect us, we gonna disrespect you. You know what I'm saying? The city has always been that way, always, in my opinion, gonna be that way. But right now, the team isn't. Right? The team is like walking on eggshells. I don't want to bother anybody. I'm sorry. Oh, I hit your leg. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I apologize. Hey, let me help you up right quick. Hey, man, you're a really good player, man. You're like one of the best players that I ever seen. Yeah, man, I know we have to guard each other. You have to guard me today, man, but I just want to let you know. Can I have your jersey after the game? Look, miss me with that, man. Like the nice guy, I'm serious, man. Like it's not it's not equal to what the city actually is, man. Just a bunch of nice guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, one mind your daughter dating, you know what I'm saying? Like and that's cool, you know what I'm saying? Like you want these guys to be law-abiding citizens, but on the field, man, I don't need you to be no nice guy. I don't want to talk to you. Like I want you to hate me. Like seriously. I met Roddy White at the Coastal Carolina game. Like cool dude. Like I think he was there with his son or somebody in his family. But I told him, man, I said, I said, you a good player or whatever like that. I told him I'm a Saint fan. I said, so out of Lord, I can't take no picture. He laughed. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I ain't about to take no, like, that's, but that's because when he was a Atlanta Falcon, a wide receiver, I despised the dude. Man, because he was good. I don't like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about. I don't want to like you. Steve Smith, great player. I don't like him. I don't want to sit up here and be sitting up here kissing, kissing your hand like you the Queen of England. I don't want your jersey. You should want mine because I'm about to put foots in you. And if you ain't doing that, then what are we doing? What are we doing here, man? Look, this is football. This isn't the political race here. This isn't a race to Washington. This is a race for the Lombardi. Drew came in when it was after Katrina. Yep. Let's see. It is a head game and much as a physical talent game. Yep. That's true too. And that's what goes back to what I'm saying. That goes back to what I'm saying. Like, it's a mentality. You can have respect for a guy, but I ain't got respect for you for 60 minutes. Look, we can go out to Emerald Lagasse's restaurant when it's all said and done. But if you're a cornerback, I'm about to have about 5 catches for 125 and 2 tutties on you. And then I'm going to eat a steak in your face and we can talk about your family and mine. But when I get on the field, I don't have no love. I ain't got no love for you. Like, helping you up, talking about you the best player I ever seen. Like, man, look, after the game, I can talk to you like that. We go to the Pro Bowl or we meet in the Super Bowl or something like that, you know what I'm saying, being cordial, but I'm not, bro, I don't want to talk about how great you are, and I want you to talk about how great I am. The city, the people was about resolve. Still is. Still is, man. Dennis Allen must know where Shawn Pyton hid the bodies or something because they ain't firing this dude yet. Well, I don't even think it's that. I just think that, first off, we've all heard this, and I want to say maybe Nick Underhill said this, but he was like, a lot of times where teams don't fire their coaches right off the bat, they don't want to make it seem like they're a dysfunctional organization. To a certain extent, I agree with that. I do. I agree with it. You don't want to resemble a dysfunctional organization, but I also feel that if you have enough skins on the wall when it comes to success, winning constantly, divisional titles, playoff appearances, there's a standard that was in place, right? There's a standard that was put there because you're like one of the best teams. So because there's a standard there, it don't just translate to the field. It's also in the front office as well. So if you were to fire a guy like Dennis Allen after the Saints have been one of the best teams in the NFC for almost 20 years, I think a head coach that wants an opportunity, or a coach that wants an opportunity to be a head coach, rather, I think they'll be forgiven because they understand, like, man, like there's a standard here, and I want to make sure I maintain that standard. So you can't just make it like, let's not get it twisted. Like, we're not talking about the 90s Saints here, right? If you start firing people left and right and you put up the record that the 90s New Orleans Saints did, then I can understand how somebody may look at it as being dysfunctional. But right now, the New Orleans Saints are looking like, to me, the Saints are equivalent to Amazon, where you have years of success and the CEO, ain't cutting it. Like, come on, man, this is freaking Amazon. Like, we know for a fact that they making billions of dollars. So I know if I go up in here, I know what the standard is. I want to work for that place. But sitting around here caring about optics, caring about what people think, oh, I don't want to fire Dennis Allen. What if the next coach just think I won't believe in him? I don't trust him. You hired a coach with an 8-28 record. You didn't hire a coach that was just brand new. Like, I feel like this. If we hired a coach that was spanky, brand new, and he was dealing with some of the issues that we're dealing with over the last 2 seasons, we might be more willing to give him an opportunity. But this guy has shown you in one place that he's not good enough. And he's showing you again in another place that he's not good enough. If a person shows you who they are, you have to believe them. You can give a person wiggle room to change because people change. People can change their behavior. Pete Carroll is one of them. Bill Belichick. You got so many other coaches out here that struggled with their first time around. Second time, they just hit the ground running. So you give these people an opportunity to change, but if they're showing you pretty much the same thing that resembles their failures, you have to admit that's just who they are. And you have to move accordingly. So you can't be so afraid of what people may think about you. To me, if you're looking at this team, you're looking at the standard, you're looking at the players, and there's opportunity for you to coach this team, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to coach the New Orleans Saints? Seriously. Why wouldn't you want to coach the New Orleans Saints when in the second half they look like they're one of the best defenses in football, and you have some of the best young promising players on your team, including a running back that to me could be one of the best in the league, but you basically squandered 2 years with him. You don't think a coach will look at, man, I can't believe this, man. I can actually coach Alvin Kamara. I can actually coach Chris Olave. Like, man, these guys, like, they will be chomping at the bit to do that. Like, the Saints aren't, like I said, they're not like Eddie Kane standing outside the concert when it's all said and done with his old costume on, talking like nights like this, I wish that raindrops will fall. Like, this is a really good football team. And if you put it in the right hands, they can be a very, very dangerous football team. But you can't be afraid to take that step, because if you wait too long, you're going to find out, man, like, I do not want to see the Saints in the basement because they tripling down. They didn't double down on DA. If they bring them back again, they're going to be tripling down on them. And like I said, if the Saints end up winning this division, you're going up against division champions. And I don't believe it. I don't believe that Derek Carr can go out here and be able to stop, you know what I'm saying? Like, be able to, like, carve up the Dallas Cowboy defense. Michael Parsons will have him on his back every 5-10 minutes because he holds on to the ball, like I said yesterday, about as long as my grandparents been together, 60 years. That's how long that boy be holding on to the football. So you can't win with an easy schedule. Do you think you can win with a schedule that's complicated? Absolutely not. I'm to a point where I'm starting to get uninvested emotionally with this team. I'm tired of the lack of urgency, poor coaching, poor play calling. I hate that the coaches panic whenever they fall behind. Terrell, I'm going to tell you this. I've been checked out as far as this season. Like, I just watched the Saints games with very little emotional investment. Very little emotional investment because I just know, like, if they win, cool. I'm happy because, of course, you know, I love the team. But if they lose, I'm not surprised. So I don't sit up here and just let it ruin my day or ruin my evening. You know, I go and do whatever. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the game, you know what I did? Shoot, I ate me some ribs that I was cooking and, you know what I'm saying, marinated on Saturday night. Them ribs were good, by the way. That's what I did. You know what I'm saying? They ain't mess up my mood. You know, the only thing I wish is I would have baked some macaroni. But anyway, they ain't mess up my mood. You know what I'm saying? Like, shoot, them ribs was good. I was able to hang out with my son for a little bit, you know, joke around with him. They ain't mess up my mood. You know what I'm saying? Like, probably would have joked around with my wife, but she wanted a little self-care thing going. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I was with my son. But all in all, it didn't mess up my mood at all. And it shouldn't mess up yours because, look, once again, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. So why are we sitting up here why are we sitting up here at 2 a.m. hoping that she or he comes home when they haven't been home for 3 days? Like, they are who they are. Like, why are we sitting up here? I know they gonna come home. I know she gonna come home. Nah, bruh. Nah, man. Like, they already showed us who they are. So why are we sitting up here waiting? Why are we sitting up here waiting by the phone, hoping that they call? They showed you. The Saints are who they are. They're going to give you great moments. They're going to give you moments where you feel good. They're going to look like they're one of the best teams in the league. And then the next week, they're going to be getting carved up like a Thanksgiving turkey by the most mediocre quarterback that you ever seen. And teams who defense is probably ranked in the bottom 20s going to look like they're the 85 Bears against them. Why are we sitting up here acting surprised at this particular point? You know, like, why are we acting like we surprised? Why are we getting all upset, throwing stuff? Like, man, you know how much you paying for your television sets? Do you know how much you paid for that table that you banging your hand on? Do you understand that you putting wrinkles in your couch by leaning back like this in frustration? Huh? Do you understand that you're taking years off your life by stressing out about a team that is content with having a mediocre coach? Why are we doing this? Why? Why are you doing this? Like, seriously, if this was Breeze, hey, go to CVS. You know what I'm saying? Because you know more than likely this ain't about to happen too often. Or, you know what I'm saying, one of these other credible quarterbacks out here. But come on, man, give me a freaking break. Why are we sitting up here being surprised about this at this point? This has been a mixed bag for the last 2 seasons. And now it's even worse because the schedule is just so pathetic when it comes to the quarterback play. No disrespect to any one of those guys, but they ain't moving a needle with none of the – man, who have they played outside of Trevor Lawrence who is moving the needle? Who? Ryan Tannehill, is he moving the needle? Jordan Love, is he moving the needle? Bryce Young, he has the potential, but is he moving the needle right now? All right, I even throw C.J. Stroud in there. C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence, 2 guys. But you didn't play 10 games. So out of the 8 games, pretty much mediocre quarterback play. And yet you still can't stop it. You're supposed to have one of the best defenses in the league. It's not like you going up against Jalen Hurts or how Dak playing or something like that, or Brock Purdy. Like, you're playing the most pedestrian quarterbacks. None of these guys, for the most part, that includes Jordan Love, will probably be the starting quarterback of their team next year. And yet you're sitting here at 5-5. What more do you need to see as a fan, as an onlooker, as a GM, as an owner, as a Saints trust? What do you need to see? What more needs to be told? It's pretty open and shut. It's like, as a detective, you're sitting up here, you walk up into a house, you see a person laying on the floor lifeless, and they have a gunshot wound to the chest, and a person is sitting in a chair with a gun in their hand. Open and shut freaking case. He did it. She did it. Don't find out why they did it. But it's open and shut. What are we doing? What are we doing? I just want to know. Winning coaches don't hold their tongue or give excuses. Derek Carr is as good as his brother. I gotta be honest. I think his brother would have been better if he probably had an offensive line. Like, I think that he probably. I don't think he would have been like a world beater or nothing like that. But by the time they actually started to turn it around with the Texans, he was all beat up, man. I remember one year, I think his rookie year, he got sacked like 80 times. But probably because he held on to the ball too long, too. I mean, I was kind of young. I was maybe like 12 or 13 when David Carr came into the league. Let's see. Jameis balled out yesterday. I don't fault him for the interceptions. They had Jameis throwing deep the whole time. He was in when you had Taysom Hill, AK, and other. Jameis wins the LOL. Where was the run game? Well, Tyrell, you have to pretty much scrap the run game when you are losing like that. So I can understand why the Saints, decided to like throw the ball consistently. Look, balling out is that's some strong language right there. I'm going to say he was a spark. He was a spark in the game. I won't say he balled out. Like he was a spark, right? He kind of gave he did a good job at instilling confidence in young players, giving young players opportunity, giving them, ability, like show that they can shine if you give them the chance. But he did put the ball in harm's way more times than not. And he had other opportunities because guys were kind of running free. But I won't say he balled out, but he did provide a spark. And they would not have been in that game if he would have stayed in that game. If Derek Carr would have stayed in that game. You have some Raider fans out there that's still caping for him. You got a bunch of Cape Crusaders out here, caping for Derek Carr. But look, Derek Carr, once again, is not going to sacrifice himself for the team. It's just not going to happen. Like, he'll probably make some throws or whatever like that, but he went, nah. Sorry. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Held Vikings to 3 in the second half. You just go totally overlook the 24 they gave up on the first half to a team missing its starting quarterback and wide receiver. They are overrated. Yeah, I mentioned that. Like, I mentioned that at the beginning of the show, and Dolph called the show yesterday, and that part I do agree with him with. The fact that Dennis Allen calling Carter's defense and your defense over 5 games, Dolph, I got the numbers right here. 92 points in the first half over 5 games. 92 points. I can't even think about like how many yards. Like it's almost like 1,400 yards over a 5-game span. Something crazy like that. So to me, your calling Carter's defense, you have people making arguments and have made arguments at the beginning of the season like, if we lose Dennis Allen, then we lose the defense too. Well, let me tell you this. As well as they play in the second half, they play like they're the best team in football when it comes to the defense. But in the first half, you play like slow. So to me, it's not even worth it. Like, the best quality about you is lacking, right? You're lacking, right? If everybody dates somebody or talk to somebody because of their qualities, right? Like, you're married because your wife or your husband love the qualities that you possess, right? But what happens when the thing that they love you the most, like they love about you the most, you stop doing? Right? I mean, like, what the heck is going on here? You know what I'm saying? Like, his defense was his calling card. It was the thing that made people fall in love with him. The fact that he can be able to neutralize the offense or make some of the best quarterbacks in the league look pedestrian. But now you're making some of the most pedestrian quarterbacks look like they the GOATs. Like, they need to go and size up they gold jacket at the tailor shop. So the one thing that everybody kind of got on board with you with, you're lacking. So what do you do there? So yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, look, the defense looks terrible. The defense definitely is the reason why they were in a hole. But at the same time, it's called a team for a reason. You got to complement one another. Even though, like, think about this. If the Saints were down at halftime 24-10 or 24-13, you still got a chance. The Saints had 5 possessions offensively in the first half. So if you would have turn one of them possessions into a field goal, what happens if you actually scored a touchdown on one of those drives? Then the game wouldn't have looked as insurmountable as it was, and you didn't have to shy away from the running game because Alvin Kamara was getting 5 yards a clip. So if you would have been able to stay in the game, Alvin Kamara probably would have possibly broke one, went over 100 yards. So to me, like, there's a lot of things that happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a team game. But yeah, we wouldn't have had this conversation if the defense wouldn't have been able to step up. But the question is, why is it that you look like 2016 in the first half and you look like the 85 Bears in the second half? That's coaching, man. It's not like all of a sudden, like on Space Jam, like they got the secret stuff. And even the secret stuff that they had on Space Jam was just water. You have the same guys that are going out there playing. So why is it that these guys look like world beaters in the second half but can't look like that at the beginning of the game? I mean, that's it. Not you, TJ. I was speaking of Brian, who said defense tired of carrying teams for 10 weeks. Again, Brian, they are paid to stop the offense regardless of the situation. Look, I agree with that. Like the calling card, and shouts out to Deuce. Deuce said this yesterday on this show, and check it out. Deuce was like, he was more upset with the defense, and I think this is kind of the category what Dolph falls in, and a lot of other onlookers as well and podcasters out there. They feel like this team calling card has been defense. And it's kind of similar to when we looked at Drew Brees back in the day, how if the offense was sputtering, we kind of like looked at Drew, right? And we weren't really paying attention to the defense like that because we knew that the team was led by their offense. Well, the script has been flipped here. Now the defense is the calling card of the team. Your coach is a defensive-minded coach. So people feel like the defense should at least be on point to, that they should be able to neutralize any offense that comes their way. Now, I said this at the beginning of the season because I felt like the offense was lacking way too much. I said, what happens if the defense has an off day? Your offense won't be able to counteract what the opposition is doing, and thus that has been the issue. Because over the last 5 games, you have the defense not playing up to their standards. The offense isn't good enough to be able to erase deficits. It's not like you be talking about top-notch quarterback play or offensive innovations. They cannot counteract what the opposition is doing. And they definitely can't do it if the defense decides to wet the bed every single week in the first half. You're basically playing from behind. You're playing catch-up. And a lot of the game plan that you actually have, you got to kind of throw it away. Like they couldn't use Taysom Hill in some of the packages that they had for him because the game was out of hand. Can't really use Alvin Kamara running the football because the game is out of hand. Now all you have to do is just throw the football. And hope that your wide receivers can come down or your quarterback don't throw an interception. They were basically at the mercy. They were basically at the mercy of the Vikings. So if you're at a team's mercy, more than likely you got to go into desperation mode. Keeping it real, it's called logic. I want to know how the Bills led the league in defense last year because they had an offense that complemented them. Yeah, it's a team game. But at the same time, I can understand why people are upset about the defense because the defense is the catalyst. That's just the way that it goes. I can understand why people are upset because it's the same reason why we were upset when if Drew Brees had an off game or the offensive line wasn't blocking them back in the day. I get what they're saying, but the offense isn't completely absolved of this. You still got to be able to put up points. It wasn't like, the Minnesota Vikings went on a 30-minute drive or something like that in the first half, and the Saints didn't never get the football. You had 5 opportunities, and you couldn't come away with anything for exception of 3 points. It's a team game. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. These guys play up if they are confident in their quarterback, coach, offensive coordinator. Ravens, Lions are examples with no chance. Guys give up, avoid injuries, wait out contracts. It's all connected. Look, I think that it all comes down to guys, like you said, being motivated. I feel like it comes down to that. But also, you want to be able to stay consistent. And when guys are putting their best foot forward and they're going out there doing the best that they can, and it still does not equate to success, some of the talking and all that kind of stuff just goes on deaf ears. Like guys may like you. Like I said, they like Dennis Allen, but at the same time, they gonna start not believing in him. They're gonna feel like, okay, man, we doing everything that we can. That we just can't win. And guys gonna start checking out as the season started to get closer, and you're not in playoff contention. Guys are going to start making business decisions and be like, you know what? Hey, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Do I really want to run through this pile of humanity, risking a chance of me messing up my ankle while I can't go to Cancun when it's all said and done? I'm just saying, guys start making businesses. Do I want to sacrifice myself for a team I know that's not really going anywhere, that won't have sustainable success? Look, these guys are human. I mean, like I know we look at these players as superhuman, but they're human. If you feel like, look, if you climbing up a hill and you keep on sliding down, you know what I'm saying? The mud keep on sliding you down and sliding you down. Like eventually you're gonna be like, you know what, man? It's two things, right? I'm gonna go up the other side, or I'm gonna turn back around and go back to the bottom. So I don't know. Like I said, man, you got to give guys something to believe in. And they also want to believe that if they putting their best foot forward, that it's going to equate to success. Not winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one. You can love your first cousin and still know that he's a butt munch. First time Olave smiled and showed passion when Carr got hurt. He definitely don't like Carr. It showed. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be. Yeah, but you want to know the crazy thing about it? You want to know the crazy thing about this? I'm dead serious. I feel like the Saints, in some cases, are so delusional, and they care so much about keeping Derek Carr happy that they would trade Chris Olave. Like, I'm serious. Like, they care way too much about this dude and what he thinks, in my opinion. Like, I understand, like, you know, he's supposed to be the franchise quarterback, and you want to keep him happy. I figured that out when we all knew, you and your mama and your daddy knew, that the New Orleans Saints needed some help at pass rush. And the only stories that we heard, for the most part, was the Saints calling the Raiders about Hunter Renfrow. Seriously, that's when you know their priorities are messed up and they care too much about what this dude thinks. Why are you not on the phone trying to go after Martez Sweat? Why are you not on the phone trying to go after Chase Young? You're sitting on the phone trying to negotiate with the Raiders to get a wide receiver when you have a plethora of wide receivers that can make plays. Does anybody out there lacks confidence in Michael Thomas, lacks confidence in Chris Olave, lacks confidence in Rashid Shaheed? Why in the hell are you sitting on the phone trying to get a slot receiver and you can barely get the ball to the hands of the playmakers you got? That's when you know the priorities are messed up. So I don't second guess this when I say this. If Chris Olave was frustrated with Derek Carr to a point where he just like, man, I just can't do this. I just can't do this. I really wholeheartedly believe that the Saints would let go a guy who is in his second year with unlimited potential for a guy whose best days are behind him. That is when the priorities are messed up. And like I say, I do not hesitate when I say this, because why are you on the phone going after Hunter Renfrow, a guy who has been in good graces with your quarterback, and completely negate the fact that you need help at pass rush? I could be wrong. I don't know. I didn't ask any of the reporters out there. I don't know if the Saints called up the Commanders to go after Sweat or Young. I don't know. I didn't see it. But I damn sure saw them calling up the Raiders for Hunter Renfrow. Like I said, you got Jawan Johnson that's basically just sitting up here collecting dust like that penguin on Toy Story 2 on the top of the shelf. This man can barely get a touch, but you sitting up here talking about Hunter Renfrow. I'm just saying, like, what are we doing? We bringing in Foster Monroe. We bringing in Brian Edwards. We bringing in all of these guys that, we just want to make them comfortable. We bringing in John Gruden. Brought all these dudes in, and it still don't equate to any level of success. I'm telling you, man, like, seriously, like, at this particular point, they'll do anything for Derek Carr. Anything. We know it. And as we can see, like, and I owe, to a certain extent, I owe Chris Olave an apology, because I'm serious. This guy, Derek Carr, had Chris Olave looking like he was as suspect as a guy in a police lineup. Like, seriously. Like, he had this dude looking like that. Yesterday, I'm telling you, it was like night and day. It was like a metamorphosis or something. Like he morphed into something that we all thought he would be at the beginning of the season. They got that, like they say, they got that show on TV One called For My Man. The Saints need to do a show called For Derek Carr because they're willing to do anything for him. And that includes alienate the fan base, and that also includes making people believe that Chris Olave is at fault. Y'all remember when Dennis Allen came to the podium? Oh, Chris just stopped running. He didn't run the right route. When Michael Thomas came out and said, yeah, he ran the route the way he was supposed to, but he wasn't supposed to be in the picture as a target. So he's willing to stand up there and say, for Derek Carr, it was Chris Olave's fault. But in reality, he wasn't even part of the play. He's willing to sit up there and say that your quarterback that only mustered up 3 points, and you have a backup quarterback that put your team, who was down 27-3 before he came into the game, and say, I don't understand why there would be a controversy. Interesting. It's funny. Like I said, for Derek Carr, one of my favorite songs of all time, Stevie Wonder say, for your love, I would do anything just to see the smile upon your face. For Derek Carr, they'll do anything. But get what you get. I missed the song you used to do right now. I think you should redo Jermaine Jackson's song, Don't Take It Personal. Let's see. A failing buddy system. Loomis, Allen, Carmichael, and Carr are all good friends. It's killing the franchise. I don't know if they're all good friends, but they definitely, love themselves some Derek Carr. I don't know, they friends or whatever like that. I just think that you have a bunch of individuals that are just not right for each other, and you have a GM that's afraid of change. At this point, I feel very comfortable saying it. Pathetic division. We're stuck in what we got at least through 2025 because of the cap. And that's what I said. That's the reason. Like, since you're stuck, you have to go with a team builder. You got to get a coach that has a reputation of being a team builder. And like I said, I mean, it's right there for you. Jim Harbaugh is right there for you right now. Like, more than likely, he's going to leave Michigan because they don't want to continue to have this level of scrutiny. They just don't. I mean, you got what's going on in Michigan basically affecting like college football games everywhere. Like, as a member of the media, I cover Coastal Carolina for some of you that don't know out here in South Carolina. And we go upstairs to the press box when we have to go on the field, and you have to wear like a vest. And a lot of people, they just grab the vest or whatever like that, present it to the police or some level of security just to show that you're on the field. But they were adamant. They were like, you got to keep your vest on today. You got to keep it on, and you got to stay out the box, the player's box, right? In the coach's area. They were adamant about this, and it had everything to do with what's going on in Michigan. So for a fact, if this guy needs an out, or he needs out, there you go. He needs out. So this guy's right there for you. It's not like, college coaches don't work in the NFL. Like, this dude worked in the NFL. He worked in college. He has a reputation of being able to find success with the players that he has. That is what you need right now. If you're stuck with Derek Carr to 2025, if you're stuck with some of these contracts that you have, and there's no signs of letting up, you got to be able to get a coach at this particular point that can be able to build with what you actually have. Like, you can't, like, at this particular point, if you have a young coach, you can't afford, at this point, you cannot afford to take a chance on a guy who is young and inexperienced, and you don't know what he's going to do, right? A lot of these young coaches that you have, like, they go into situations that you have an influx of contract money. You have a top 5 pick. You have all of these things going on for you, like, in order to, make this team what it is. But what you have Right now, you can't afford to do that. So you got to be able to go with somebody that you know, for example, that you know for a fact has what it takes to turn teams around on a professional level. Like, this is one of those situations where if you have like a coach that's on TV or something like that, right? Somebody that's like on TV, like, for example, like Rex Ryan or something. Like, you need somebody that has like a reputation of having success in the National Football League. Now, I'm not lobbying for Rex. I still like, I'm just using him for example. A coach that has been there, done that has been around, and that you know for a fact that has a reputation of winning. If the Saints didn't have contract issues, a bunch of contracts that's going to be on the books for the foreseeable future, I would say to go with a younger guy. I'm not saying that you should interview younger guys, but you need someone that has been in the league for quite some time that understands how to lead men and has a reputation of building a team, but also being able to put a positive product on the field with what they have. Right now, you know what I'm saying? Like, you look, for all my people out there that grew up in you know, certain areas, you know about food stamps, right? At the end of the month, it started to get a little bit, it get down to the rice and the butter, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, you got to make that thing work for a couple of days or a couple of weeks until, you know, the food stamp load back up. Like, some of y'all know what I'm talking about here. That's what the Saints got to do. Like, you got to roll with the rice and the butter right now until, you know, you be able to get yourself out of this cap hell that you done put yourself in trying to kick the can down the road. So you need somebody in there that know what they're doing. You know, like that's I feel like it's that is the solution to this problem. Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that you can't find a guy, you know, like a Ken Dorsey or, you know, like some of these other young coaches out here that can turn it around, but I would feel more comfortable with somebody that has a reputation of using what they got and getting the best out of it. And, you know, like I said, that's kind of what the 49ers had. When Jim Harbaugh got to the 49ers, they had Alex Smith, right? And Alex Smith went through like 7 coordinators, gave you some up and down play. You know, you had a couple of older guys that were kind of long in the tooth, you know, but still were under contract. And you had to basically use what you had. And they found success doing that. So to me, Jim Harbaugh would be the best choice for the same situation right now. Hey, bro, I'm sick now. You got a coach with the Texans and winning the first year. My wife talking noise. And as a Saints fan, I'm sick. Fire Dennis Allen right now. Yeah, James, look, but that's the thing. That goes back to what I'm saying. Look at DeMeco Ryans, right? DeMeco Ryans was basically given a blank check because they had a bunch of money when it comes to, you know, as far as the salary cap. You had the 2nd and the 3rd pick in a draft, right? I mean, and on top of that, like, you were able to bring in some of the guys that were successful for the 49ers, and you were able to pay them to combine them with the younger players and help those younger players become pros. That is the perfect situation for a brand new coach. But like I said, what happens when you are in cap hell and your situation isn't as appealing as the situation that is going to happen in Carolina? That is, you know, not as appealing as what's going to happen with some of these other like franchises that's struggling, like the Packers. You know, like, I'm not saying they're gonna get rid of Matt LaFleur, but y'all get what I'm saying. Like, there is possibilities there. Like, you could basically build it the way that you want to build it right away. Versus a guy who probably, you know, like, think about this. Jim Harbaugh has a reputation of building franchises to be competitive, colleges to be better. Like, he'll probably embrace this situation more so than a young guy, because a young guy is going to look like, man, like, this is going to be an uphill battle. And I'm not trying to do this me just starting out, and then I get the reputation of not being a good coach. So to me, like I said, only appealing This is going to be only an appealing job for a coach that's been there. I see somebody say John Gruden too. Like, yeah, somebody like that. Like, it would have to be somebody that would embrace this type of situation. That would embrace it. Like, you think about what's going on with the Broncos. That's the reason why they hired Shawn Pyton. That's like Shawn Pyton is a veteran coach that has seen it all and done it all. So that's why you see most teams that deal with this type of situation go for coaches that's been there. But to me, Jim Harbaugh would be the best choice based on the situation. Now, if the Saints had a similar situation to the Texans, by all means, go out there and get yourself one of these other, high-profile superstar coordinators that's going to be a head coach. Go out there and get them. But right now, you can't, because nobody's going to really look at this particular job and as a first-time head coach and say, you know what, I think I'm going to do this, because they're going to feel like they're behind the 8-ball already. And would they have like the patience, or would the organization have the patience? Or they're going to just look at that coach like, oh, we put you here and you ain't did nothing, but it's not really his fault. Hey, TJ, any idea why Pete Carmichael only ran the ball once when Jameis entered the game? Probably because they were so far behind. I like head coach Josh Heupel at Tennessee. Look, I watched Josh Heupel his entire career, including when he was quarterbacking at Oklahoma. But nah, not for this particular situation. Like I said, he kind of fits that mold, Mario, for a team that doesn't have issues with salary cap, and he can pick the players that he wants. Like the Bears, Carolina, Arizona, even though Arizona ain't going nowhere, the Chargers would be another team as well. I feel like the Chargers are probably kind of fits that same mold with the Saints too. So I think they probably go with experience next time as well. Because, you got some really talented players over there, and Brandon Staley is not moving the needle there either. I'm going to take a few more and get up out of here, man. It's been a good show. Folks. I really enjoyed this show. It says, I gave that trash benefit of the doubt, hollering. Offensive line, well, they benched, I guess, the problem child. And the protection is there now. And DC holding the ball too long, sitting in the pocket till they bust him up. Yeah, when he held on to the ball, Kevin, for forever and a day, and he still – my bad. Yeah, but when he held on to the football forever and a day, and and he still ended up fumbling the football, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of done with this right here. Kyle Harley can fix the cap situation. He should be promoted GM. All this crap is on Loomis, in my opinion. But at the same time, Hebrew, how many times you want to keep on doing that stuff, man? It's a great practice to do, when you have to and you're back against the wall, but you don't want to continue to run your organization like that. Like, you want to kind of, put the cap within compliance. You don't want to keep on trying to move money here, move money there, move money everywhere, so you got to be able to make some better decisions. So to me, like I said, you get yourself a coach that can be able to coach what you have to allow you to become cap compliant more consistently. And you start, you make sure that you get, a GM or, a good scout team, so you can be able to develop your team and build through the draft and capitalize on these young guys that have a lot of promise, that can make some plays while they're still on a rookie deal before you really have to make some tough decisions about paying them. Like, you think about Marcus Williams going, Alex Anzalone going, Trey Hendrickson going, Muhammad, he was going. CJ Gardner-Johnson, all these guys were basically, cap casualties. And if you had the money, you can have kept these guys around and made some plays. And also, just some of the decisions by, looking at Trey Hendrickson and saying, okay, man, we got Davenport. That was one of the worst decisions in the Saints history right there. They've had a lot. We all know about the Ricky Williams deal and, Jason David and Brandon Brown. Like, they didn't have some bad decisions. Jarius Byrd, But getting rid of Trey Hendrickson when he wasn't even like he was at the beginning of his prime, and you let him go because you wanted to mess around with Marcus Davenport, who, God bless him, just can't stay healthy. I mean, I seen like him on social media. He looking at the game from a luxury box. You know, like, hey TJ, what about Michael Penix in the draft? I like Michael Penix. I think that he's a leader. I think that he's a guy that you can follow. Respect him a lot. I like the way that he approaches the game. He makes smart decisions as a quarterback. I don't think I don't think it's a surprise that he's up for the Heisman. And more than likely, he's probably going to win it based on how Washington has played, how they're still undefeated. I mean, I know Jaden Daniels has had a remarkable season, but it's kind of hard to not give the Heisman to a guy who is playing at a high level and his team is undefeated. Did anybody hear Tyron interview with New Orleans football last night? He basically blamed the coaches for not motivating and leading the team. No, I didn't see that. I mean, I've seen a little bit of it. You know, as far as Tyrann Mathieu, I like Tyrann Mathieu, but I think I said last week I tried to defend him, but I think I see what everybody else is seeing. He's getting up there in age, man. Another guy who has really done some amazing things throughout his career, but he's at the end of it. And he'll probably still give you some spark and probably still remind you how good he is from time to time. We've seen that pick six, against the New England Patriots a couple of weeks back, and we've seen him, making some plays, throughout the season here and there. But for all the time, it's undefeated. Like when you look at guys like Cam Jordan and Tyrann Mathieu, it's just not the players they once were. Demario Davis either, and that's not their fault. It's not like they not, like they choose this. It just happens. And, I think that the Saints defensively are about as slow as molasses. Like, seriously, like they looking like them old cats that be out there, trying to play flag, and because in their glory years are behind them, but they still treating it like it's the NFL or something, like that's kind of how they look, like slow motion. Like you see like some of these other defenses, like these guys be flying around the field. Like at this particular point, it's just getting sad. You know what I'm saying? It's like watching the Temptations, perform on a Riverboat Hallelujah or something. Not to say that they did that, but y'all get what I'm saying. Like y'all was performing at one of the biggest, places, the Copacabana. There it is. They were performing at the Copacabana. Now all of a sudden, like you singing and dancing on the Riverboat Hallelujah. Like, what are we doing here? You know what I'm saying? like I don't get it. Like, that's just what they are. Like it's looking sad at this particular point. I think that Cam Jordan still needs to be playing, but I don't think that he needs to be playing up to 90% of the snaps at this particular point in his career. Like I feel like it's a little bit of a hindrance. I'm not saying that he shouldn't play at all, but I'm just saying they need a younger guy to be splitting those reps with him. Like if you're drafting Isaiah Foskey in the second round, like he should be that guy. If Cam getting like 80, 90% of the snaps, because, he's getting up there, I feel like he should go from like 80, 85 to 90% to about 70, 75%. And the other 25, close to 30% need to go to Isaiah Foskey. Like, you got to find ways to do it. Like, to me, I mean, he's a liability right now. Tyrann Mathieu, to me, is a liability. Marcus May is not better than Jordan Howden. The only reason why I feel like he's playing is because, quite frankly, is because they paid him a certain amount of money. It's true, TJ, you 100 right. That's just how it is. Yeah, I mean, look, Father Time is undefeated. But I got a lot of respect for Cam Jordan. I love him as a player. I was lobbying for him to, finish out his career as a Saint, which he should, but he should not be taking the majority of the snaps like he once did before. I'm sorry. And neither should Demario Davis either. No, he shouldn't either. Like, Demario Davis is dealing with I want to say like a knee injury, and it's something serious. Like, and this guy is still out there trying to give it his all. It's because, like, if he wasn't out there, I mean, what would the Saints do? Like, you going to put Zach Bourne out there so he can get smoked and get embarrassed by tight ends and running backs? So they kind of handcuffed here. So you got to be able to figure it out. But to me, the solution would be Jim Harbaugh as the next head coach because he has a reputation of a team builder. I think I missed a donation here. I missed two, actually. SK, thank you very much for 499. Says, TJ, what's your prediction for the final record? Man, to be honest with you, I don't even know, man. Maybe like 9-8 or something like that. Maybe 8-9. You know, something of that nature. Tim, thank you very much for the $10. Says TJ, we were down by 8 with 9 minutes left in the game at the 50-yard line. Why is play calling still making Jameis throw Hail Marys? Make it make sense. Run game is working and Taysom is there. Why? I have absolutely no idea. Probably because they panic when, they feel desperate. Maybe that's the case. I don't know, Tim. Your guess is as good as mine. Like I'm at a loss. And at this point, like I said, I don't care. I want to look. I don't want to say that I want to see them lose out, but at this point, I really don't care about the 2023 season. Like as long as at the end of the season, this dude is out of here. I'm talking Dennis Allen. Like as long as he's out of there, like don't let the smoke and mirrors of a weak division and mediocre quarterback play, if they start to rally towards the end of the season, block you from the fact that this dude isn't really, really good at his job. Because I'm telling you, next season, if you win a division, you're going up against division champions, and this dude as a head coach is going to be in over his head. And I'm telling you, you're going to end up having to fire this dude after 4 games, just like they did against the Raiders. So don't keep this dude around because you didn't fell for the whole banana in a tailpipe in the form of, they went on a 2-3 game winning streak or they won the division. Like, understand that what the circumstances are of them winning the division. You're playing in NFC South, the worst division in football, and you're playing against quarterbacks that probably going to be in the USFL. Probably at least 30% of them going to be in the USFL or the XFL in the next 4 to 5 years. So let's just make it clear here. TJ, who has a better record this year, FAMU or Jackson State? FAMU does, but there's only one team that can actually go to the SWAC championship and the Heritage Bowl. If there was other bowls that HBCUs can go to, which there should be, then Jackson State would be bowl eligible. So I'm happy with that. I don't like they're. I mean, what are they, 7-3? I mean, I can think of worse records. You could be the Colorado Buffaloes. But thank y'all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. I really do appreciate it. Shouts out to everybody here. Know the show went a little long, but I think everybody had a lot, to get off their chest. Shouts out to the chat. We'll open up the phone lines next episode. I apologize for that. I'm still working with the soundboard. Got the audio correct, but I just can't. The output is not where it needs to be. So I won't. I can talk to you, but I won't be able to hear you. All right. So previous episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, HNSN. Make sure that you download the HNSN app. Every Wednesday at 12 noon, I do a show. It's not the show that you hear here. It's an exclusive show that's available to HNSN. It premieres 12 noon every single week on HNSN, State of the Saints podcast. And you can also follow me on social media. You can follow me on X at TJAY Jones 8. Have a good morning, noon, night, whenever you're checking out this podcast. And like always, all I got to say is, who that? And I don't know who said that about Alcorn, but Alcorn is a joke this season. How do you lose to Texas Southern? Texas Southern has been struggling all season long. But I digress.
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Because I said soft? Because I said soft, so what? I said I spell it. S-O-F capital T. Soft.